Hello, I'm Natasha Hussein, and this is Newsfeed, your dose of what people are talking about online. World leaders are calling for restraint amid concerns over a major escalation in tensions in the Middle East. Iran launched an unprecedented aerial assault on Israel on Sunday in retaliation for a recent strike on the Iranian consulate in Syria. Almost all of the 300 missiles and drones fired by Iran were shot down by Israel and its allies, averting catastrophic damage and reducing the risk of a wider regional conflict. Israel's allies have called Iran's assault reckless, although Tehran had informed the U.S. of its retaliatory plan in advance and gave a 72-hour warning to neighboring countries. Iran, Syria, Russia, and China have slammed Israel and its allies for their double standards in condemning Tehran's retaliatory attack, but not doing the same for Israel's attack on an Iranian diplomatic mission.
NPR's classic Both Sides Whataboutism to Fox's full-blown xenophobia, hide in your bunker, the evil terrorists are coming. And what they're leaving out is that on April 1st, an Israeli airstrike destroyed the Iranian consulate annex building adjacent to their embassy in Syria. And that was Israel's whole point. If they can force Iran to retaliate, then that forces the U.S. to get involved in the war, more so than just funding it. Hacking another country's embassy is grounds for war, bar none, doesn't matter who you are. Iran is backed into a corner. If they get involved, then suddenly it's a war with America as well. If they don't, they're saying to the world, you can bomb our embassies, you can take out our top commanders in a foreign country with no repercussion. What would you do if you were Iran?
Social media also erupted with criticism aimed at Western leaders, joining the chorus of voices accusing them of hypocrisy over their handling of Israel's atrocities in Gaza and the attack on Iranian personnel. Lara has more on the online conversation.
Netizens argue that Western leaders have failed to de-escalate tensions and have instead allowed violence against Palestinians for over 6 months and said nothing when Israel attacked an Iranian consulate. They point out that Western governments have supported actions that could lead to a regional war, all while cracking down on their citizens who call for peace. Critics highlight the contrast in Netanyahu's stance from dismissing the UN to seeking its help in the escalating tensions with Iran. They also argue that while Tehran only targeted military sites, Tel Aviv's actions have led to the deaths of thousands of Palestinians, mostly civilians. And critics assert that those who fail to condemn Israel's actions but criticize Iran's retaliation cannot claim to uphold international law or desire peace.
In Tel Aviv, reaction on how Israel should respond has been mixed, although the weekend's attacks are weighing heavily on locals. Muhammad filed this report from the Israeli city.
Residents of the city of Tel Aviv in central Israel are still feeling a great deal of anxiety after this historic military confrontation between the two regional arch rivals, Israel and Iran. And even though life seems to be back to normal, we're seeing people out on the beach, surfing, and many cars this morning are on the streets, quite a contrast than what we've seen on Sunday morning following the drone and ballistic missile attacks from Iran on Israel. Now, Israel is divided. The Security Cabinet seems to be unanimously in agreement of retaliating and attacking Iran, especially from the far-right elements within Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government. But there is a division on when and the scope of the attack. But even the organizers of the demonstrations in Israel, the anti-government demonstrations, have accused Prime Minister Netanyahu of using this latest tension with Iran to further his own political interests. This is something not new for Netanyahu, to put his political career and political interest ahead of the country, as they say. And under the, Israel has been under tremendous pressure from the international community, mainly the U.S., for its war conduct in Gaza, the massive number of civilian casualties as a result of its military actions in Gaza, as well as the lack of humanitarian aid being allowed into the Gaza Strip. All that has disappeared in the last 48 hours. Hardly anyone is talking about Gaza, and everyone is talking about Israel being the victim of this attack by Iran and its proxies in the region. We've heard that at the UN Security Council last night, and this is music to the ears of Israelis, mainly Prime Minister Netanyahu, who's finally was able to divert all this negative attention on Israel and on him for the war on Gaza and reclaim the Israeli narrative that Israel is the victim here. So people are tense. They're unsure if this is the end of it. They believe that there may be another round of tension between the two countries, but for the time being, it seems that the region has averted a major regional military conflict.
Switching gears now, a rise in misinformation online is partly being fueled by a shift in how we consume content nowadays. Information now is just a tap away. People can access news, gossip, and whatever information they desire in mere seconds, but may not necessarily have the skills to fact check. Traditional media platforms have been in decline for years and are fighting to stay relevant as digital media creators rack up millions of views and followers. Sari delves deeper into the media war between traditional and digital outlets.
From the early days of the printing press to today's internet, journalism has adapted along with the technology to get the news out, and quick. Another such change is looming, and it's not the rise of social media, because many social media algorithms are now limiting the spread of news stories. Nearly 60% of US adults choose to get their news on mobile devices, while roughly 30% prefer TV. Even fewer go out of their way to pick up a newspaper. Legacy media is rising to the challenge, updating their reporting to fit in with today's trends. Reuters says around half of news publishers now regularly post on TikTok. Yet, behind the scenes, the journalism industry is bleeding jobs.
The entire journalism industry is basically in a free fall. Tens of thousands of journalists have been laid off in the past year. Major media companies like BuzzFeed News have completely shuttered their news operations. Time magazine also just laid off a ton of people, and Sports Illustrated basically shut down. Pretty much the entire digital media ecosystem that myself and a lot of other millennial journalists came up in has been completely hollowed out. And it's not just digital media sites. Local news has been obliterated. The newspaper industry is cratering. Radio is essentially dead aside from NPR, which has been gutted. If you're a young journalist today, there's almost no on-ramp to traditional journalism. Even if you do get a job, journalists' salaries have been stagnant and even declined. And by the way, we don't make that much to begin with.
Just like Lorenz, some journalists are building their own following independently, but not everyone manages to stand out. And young people are increasingly turning to their peers and influencers for news. Millions are following content creators who cut the jargon and explain what's happening in simplest terms.
It's Friday night, and here's what happened.
Over 40% of users follow mainstream outlets on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. This number reaches 55% when it comes to X, formerly Twitter, a platform that used to be the go-to site for real-time news discussions. Meanwhile, TikTok is number one for influencers delivering information, followed closely by Instagram, X, and YouTube. What was once seen as the new alternative to traditional media is also changing rapidly. Social media platforms are changing their algorithms to limit political and news content, ditching fact-checking and content moderation policies, meaning the old is becoming the new again. Users are turning to search engines and digital outlets to get reliable information. But the internet is not what it used to be. The arrival of large language models has drastically changed online content. Articles written by AI top search results, and news outlets are paywalling their sites altogether to avoid their work being used to train chatbots.
It's a real unanswered question of what's going to happen to news and publishing sites who have been previously incentivized to create content in exchange for traffic from systems like Google, when now you can have a ChatGPT style system that just generates the response right there, no traffic to the original source.
When users looking for information turn to the new AI-powered search engines, their results will be a summary of what's out there. But beware of the so-called facts. Artificial intelligence still hallucinates often and can't fact-check like a journalist. In this era of digital upheaval, separating fact from fiction is essential to a healthy flow of information. and how the news industry adapts to its present challenges will shape the future, hopefully to a more engaged and informed society.
In the early days of influencer culture in the 2010s, back when we got fashion advice from YouTube hauls and Instagram was still full of overexposed, heavily filtered photos, one brand was at the center of envy for teenage girls globally. Brandy Melville. Founded in Italy, this brand became popular when it expanded to the US in the 2010s, where its fake California girl aesthetic became a major hit, and its online presence bolstered this popularity. Brandy Melville's social media accounts look like a 15-year-old's curated Pinterest board. That target audience also applied to those employed in the stores. The workers were usually young, thin, white girls.
She literally just came up to me and said, "We're opening a store in 2 days. I want you to be one of the girls who's going to open the store." Me, knowing Brandy Melville at the height of its explosion, I was like, yeah, I want to work at Brandy Melville. And that's definitely how they got girls hooked at a young age, is because it was so popular. And they would just take advantage of their popularity and get these young, cute, skinny white girls to get hired. On top of that, you would basically come into work every day and you would get your store style, whatever you were wearing to work, taking a picture of you and sent directly, as a text message. I was a manager, so I ended up texting the CEO, the owner, directly. Pictures of 15-year-old girls and what they wore to work. What? Saying this again sounds how did I not know this was so weird? I was just so blinded by how cool Brandy Melville was. And then on top of that was the pressure they put on you. You're getting paid minimum wage, and then they're expecting you to redo the entire store, but you'd have 16-year-old girls working from midnight to 8 a.m. to pull out an all-nighter and redo the entire store.
And that's not all that's wrong with this one-size-fits-all brand. A new documentary based on a Business Insider report details Brandy Melville's questionable ethics amid allegations of sexual abuse and racism. Here are some of those claims.
Stefan's point of view was to keep the brand exclusive, and he did not care about any backlash. Initially, the business did have sizes, but they quickly turned into a one-size-fits-all. After getting backlash from the public from this saying, they turned into a one-size-fits-most. Brandy Melville was exposed to have a very racist, sexist, and anti-Semitic group chat called Brandy Melville Gags. Participants in this group chat included Stefan, Jesse, store owners, producers in Italy, and anyone that Stefan wanted involved. The documentary covers 2 lawsuits that were filed against Brandy from former executives that included allegations of racism. Allegedly, Stefan had called a place ghetto in an area of Toronto because it was an area with a lot of Indians and Pakistani. Store owner said he was told by Stefan that he had to close or else they wouldn't send any more merchandise to the store, even though the store was making good money. Allegedly, Stefan had said it was because they were brown people who are not the target consumers and didn't fit with the image.
Very disturbing allegations indeed. Now, as 6 months of boycotts against McDonald's continue to bite, the fast food chain has turned to something new to lure customers back.
McDonald's presents Smells Like McDonald's, announcing the world's first billboard that smells like McDonald's.
Did you say McDonald's?
Yep, these billboards across the Netherlands emit the smell of McDonald's French fries. The yellow and red billboards have been strategically placed within 200 meters of a McDonald's outlet. The billboards contain a special compartment with fries and a ventilation system to intensify and diffuse the scent. You can smell the aroma within 5 meters of the billboards. So even though there's not a golden arch within sight, passers-by quickly clock it's an ad for Mickey D's. This isn't the first time McD's has turned to scent marketing. In 2020, it marked the 50th anniversary of its Quarter Pounder with a candle set. Each candle had a specific scent, like beef, pickles, or cheese. Light them together and they'd smell exactly like a Quarter Pounder. Not a candle set I'd buy, to be honest. And a British TikToker may have broken the world record for knitting the most blankets in 24 hours.
Yeah, I'm just out here living my best life. Hey, and I'm just
Dan Soar needed to knit 15 blankets to break the record, but managed to make 19 and live stream the entire feat. Zor, known as the tattoo knitter online, completed the challenge on Saturday in memory of his grandmother. His knit-a-thon raised more than $2,800 for a hospice and mental health charity. Zor works as a locksmith by day. He only took up knitting in December, but already has more than 300,000 followers on TikTok. A Guinness World Records rep says the organization is reviewing evidence and footage from Zor before confirming if he's officially set a new world record. So inspirational. And that's our show. Find our latest stuff on YouTube and do subscribe to our channel. See you soon.